Welcome everyone. I'm, as you can see, Vladimir Crnojević, Director of BioSense Institute in Novi Sad, and this will be a keynote of my personal view on the challenges for the sustainable or non-sustainable future. We will see that during the talk, and this will be the intro into the panel that we have afterwards with my colleagues, Minister Dr. Jelena Begović and Professor Dr. Dragan Lančar. So let's start to see where we are. If we look at the whole development since the beginning of the universe, and we try to put everything in one year, you can see that basically we are coming in the last minute development of us. In the last month of December, there is mammals are starting to develop on the planet. And basically, on the final day, we have primates and something that looks like us. And if we go there in that final day, we can see that in the end of the final day, Homo sapiens emerged and is trying to reach other parts of the planet. And then in the final second, we have the world that we know since the Middle Ages and start of the scientific revolution. In the final minute is our whole culture, since the cave paintings and ancient Egypt, it's all in the final minute. So this is a split of a second. In half a second of the whole year is what we are living through today, from the Industrial Revolution and everything that we know. And if we go back to the whole picture, my question to myself is, why all this has happened? That we have the final second that we are living now in all of this process. Is it really the meaning of the whole thing that we should do something more? It cannot be the case that all this spectacular evolution happened just for nothing. And if we look at this final minute, a human life, which is for us the most precious thing, lasts for only blink of an eye in this cosmic calendar, 0.23 seconds. And out of this, since this is Biotech forum and we are talking about science, let's start from the beginning of scientific revolution. And we are thinking about biotech as something that is fancy word in the last 10 years. My goal will be here to try to show you that these things are together developing and sometimes mixing together and borrowing things one from another. So let's start from one of my favorite Homo sapiens in the history, Charles Darwin, who broke basically the stereotype of and dogma of the previous times, and he was very shy about it. He was really tempted whether to go public with what he has discovered. And in the book, The Origin of Species, he has basically established the understanding of what we have today. And no matter what religion you have or any philosophy, there was not a single discovery until today that does not comply with this. So this is the spectacular work, and this is something that really makes us special, because we understand what is going on underneath. But this is the big picture. We are not at the molecular level yet. Coincidentally, at the same time, there was a person called Charles Babbage, which is not that famous, but he also made some spectacular progress at that time. He designed the first computing machine. He lived at the same time as Darwin, and their discoveries are kind of 10 years aligned. And this is something that is in the Science Museum in London, reconstruction of his digital machine. He made the first computer that can calculate numbers. And this is really interesting. It's my view on the history that these two things happened at the same time. And they started to develop independently. In biodomain, there was Gregor Mendel, the father of genetics, who really, after Darwin, he understood what is the law of inheritance and how the genetics is creating and shaping the offspring, how the properties and the features are transferred to the next generations. Of course, in this other tech domain, there was a spectacular person called Alan Turing, who is the father of the algorithm and artificial intelligence. You might know them from the beautiful movie, Imitation Game, where he was the part of the team at Bletchley Park deciphering Enigma machine during the Second World War. But one thing that he has posed at that time, so-called Turing test, where it's a test to understand whether behind the wall that you're communicating, is there a person or a machine? And it worked perfectly until ChatGPT. Now, we are not sure anymore. Then the next big thing, we already understood what are the cells, how they are working, physiology, and what are neurons. And that was the inspiration for the people in 1954, I think, that was the first artificial neuron. Some people at a very early stage of artificial intelligence came to an idea to, instead of dendrites and synapses, to make the program that would give the weights to the inputs, make a sum, and make some nonlinear output, which is very similar to that. And the consequence of that is the neural network, which was a very artificial thing. At the very early stage, there was a dreaming that it can imitate the brain one day, and then they abandoned the idea, like, it will never happen. I'm not sure anymore about that. So that's the tech domain. Again, in biodomain, we are coming to probably the most spectacular discovery of the 20th century, the understanding of the structure of DNA and the discovery of DNA that happened it's been published in 1953 in Nature, and the Nobel Prize was given in 1962 to the team who had discovered DNA, and from that moment we really understand deep inside the mechanism of evolution, how crossover and mutation are influencing the future generations, and how we are shaping and adapting to the environment where each species lives. But what was also interesting, it was the inspiration for genetic algorithm. So at the same time, people in tech domain developed the algorithm which uses the same functions, mutation and crossover, to find the solution. And it worked fantastically. It's still today one of the two most used algorithms that found many applications. For example, in electronics, how to put electrical components on the board, it's been designed by genetic algorithm. Or in biochemistry, how to design new compounds and new proteins by artificial design. And then in 1993, the guy appeared called John Koza, who came up with the idea to expand the genetic algorithm and make them the algorithm that can write the code, the program, computer program, through genetic philosophy. By the way, the guy invented another thing, that the scratch card that you are using, and he became billionaire on that. But this was like side job, and I was lucky enough to get into this at a very early stage in 2000. And three, and it's one of the most spectacular things from me and my way into artificial intelligence, where we can imitate the nature to generate complex computer programs. And then going back to neural networks, the next breakthrough that happened in the around 2010, we had a regular neural network, and then we went to something called deep neural network or deep learning, which is much, much, much more complex. And it turns out that it can now really come close to the brain. From one proposal from the 50s or 60s, now we are getting to the point, and it's fascinating how that happened because of the games. Company NVIDIA, who was making graphical processors for the games, it turns out that that hardware is perfect match for neural networks, and this is how the whole thing exploded. And today we have the artificial intelligence that we are talking about today that basically relies 90% on deep learning and the other 10% on genetic algorithm. So what is fascinating for me is that both solutions that are covering 99% of artificial intelligence that we are talking about are two nature-inspired algorithms. So this is biotech, that we are getting those things together. Just to clarify what is what, artificial intelligence is the shell, then you have machine learning inside, then neural networks, and then deep learning in between. When someone says artificial intelligence and machine learning, you understand that it's a layman. He doesn't know what he's talking about. It's like that you say yolk and the egg. I mean, yolk is in the egg. And just to go there, I have found somewhere the explanation what is machine learning and what is the artificial intelligence. If it's written in Python, which is the program for artificial intelligence, it's called machine learning. If it's written in PowerPoint that I'm using right now, then it's artificial intelligence. And we have really to be careful about it because 40% of AI startups don't have anything to do with AI. They're just putting that as a selling point. And what we are using today in our regular life and business relies extremely on artificial intelligence. I could take probably the rest of the day speaking about the examples, like the cameras that we are using, self-driving cars, or what we are doing, the agriculture, so that we can, from the satellite, recognize what is growing on the field. And this is as I said, endless number of examples. But what is interesting for our topic today is large language models, which appeared relatively recently with the ChatGPT, where we first time became confused that there is someone on the other side that can communicate with us, and it's not a person, it's an algorithm. And look, you can see from June 2021 until today what was the rapid development. Basically all the tech giants got on board and started to develop things. And you can see that by the rise of annual patent applications, especially from China, but then if we go to AI patent applications, it's exponential. China and the United States are, of course, leading, but there are the others coming their way. And just to compare the number of submitted versus granted, we are getting there to see that there's a lot more coming down the road. Coming back to bio, the next thing that happened is genome sequencing. Apart from discovering DNA, now we can get into any living creature and decipher completely until the last letter to understand what is going on. And it was a spectacular journey that has been started in the early stage, but in the last 10 years, it's been accelerated in the warp speed, where we are getting to the results that was mentioned today during the introductory talk. Cost of genetic sequencing of human genome in 20 years went down from 100 million euros to very, very cheap, like hundreds of euros or dollars today. And this is we are getting to the highlight of this talk, that it's my personal view on the thing. What's next? Because we are mixing these two things together, and we are getting back to the last second of our cosmic calendar, that everything can be put in this frame, and let's see what we are doing. So finally, we have the machines that have surpassed us in the brain processing power. This happened only a few years ago, where the human performance cannot match anymore the performance of the machines. Machines have still some flaws, but they have many, many advantages. One of them is that they can copy themselves. So instantly they can make 1,000 copies of all over the world of the same machine brain, and we cannot compete with that. The other thing that machines can do is our major flaw in our design, which is nearly perfect. We need oxygen. So we cannot live without that. Machines can do that. So even in heavily polluted planet, or even out of this planet, they can work on their artificial DNA just by numbers, while we are not capable of doing that. So we are getting into digital living creatures that can really work only on numbers, and they are opening the door to the new world. It's not something that is science fiction anymore. We are really, really close to that. And there was the urge from Elon Musk and Harari and the others a few months ago to hold on with AI development, because it's really getting very, very dangerous to get into something that can basically eliminate us from this planet. Now, if we have the ambition to stay here, we have to see what we can do about it. This was the first part of the talk, where we are. On the other part of the talk, we are facing the situation that for the last 100 years, we have exponential growth from 1 billion people to just past 8 billion people that are of different ages, but those in the middle, which are the most capable of development, are the most significant, and they have the biggest amount of money that they can spend on food, luxury, leisure, tourism, and other things that are basically not so good for this planet. Also, the child mortality went significantly down, and the life expectancy is growing and growing and growing. Someone mentioned the Japanese strategy 5.0. The first thing in the 5.0 Japanese strategy is to live longer. So they are targeting 150 years. I don't know in which planet we are going to fit all of these people. But anyway, apart from the oxygen, we need proteins, we need food. And this is something that is really impacting our lives in many, many ways. So this is the global meat consumption from the 1961 to 2050. And from the environmental point of view, agriculture, which is the primary activity to feed the population, is at the same time destroying the environment in probably the most significant way. You can see those red bars are the percentage or the ratio of agriculture activity that is influencing the land use, fresh water, eutrophication, mammal biodiversity, and of course greenhouse gas emissions, something that we will talk about on the panel this afternoon. Speaking of meat, beef is by far the worst thing that is going on, and at the same time its popularity globally is rising in a spectacular way. In Serbia, we didn't eat beef until 20 years ago. It was mostly stew. Now if you will go to any restaurant here in the 100 meters around this place, you will find a dry age, Angus, Tomahawk, and these things, which is really causing, it's nice, it's fine, I like it as well, but it's destroying the place where we live in. At the same time, we have living planet index going down, global warming going up, and the consequence of all of that is very bad influence on our planet and the place where we live. It's interesting that deforestation is one of the critical things that people are talking about it and raising alarms, but not many of them are paying attention. And thing that was really, really revealing to me was in the Jared Diamond's book, Collapse, which is the opposite. The Guns, Germs, and Steel, which got the Pulitzer Prize, was the rise of civilization, and the collapse is the fall of civilization in real examples, and most of them failed because of the forest destruction. And this is what we are doing today. So our ideal place where we want to live is on the right-hand side, and the situation where we are now is on the left-hand side. So we want to go from left to right, and we are talking about it. I have for the afternoon session, I have a clip of Carl Sagan talking to the US Congress on a hearing in 1985 about the same things that we are facing today. And he says, don't let it as a problem to our children. 40 years after, we have the same problems. And now, to talk about something that inspired me or frustrated me in the last month. I was flying to wherever, and on the plane there was a magazine to read on, and it was Golf magazine. So I came to an idea to really explore the influence on the golf on our environment. So apart from having the plastic balls that are going every now and then into the forest or somewhere and is making direct pollution, there is a fact that in golf magazines they are happy by the fact that the surge in popularity was better than predicted. So it's exponentially growing. Everybody wants to play golf. Everybody wants to eat Angus Kobe beef or whatever. And then if we look at the beautiful scenery of golf terrain, ask yourself, what was the destruction of the ecosystem to make this? How many forests was removed? How many species were kicked out of their habitat, which they lived for thousands of years? How many soil was distracted to make one golf terrain? How many fertilizers is put every day to maintain this spectacular grass that is basically single species, destroyed every biodiversity that existed there. And other harassment of the soil, like drilling the holes and everything else that is happening there. And then on CNN Sports, there is a dramatic warning that climate change is influencing the golf in a negative way. It's spoiling the golf pleasure, and nobody is asking what the golf has done to the planet that we are talking about. If you look at the equipment market prediction, it's growing almost exponentially. And these are some figures about golf tourism market until 2025, where everything is growing. And there are here and there some warnings about the influence to the environment. And for that reason, someone came to the idea, which was my inspiration for this talk. That's what I found in the magazine, that this small stick that you put the golf ball on is biodegradable. How cynical is that to the whole thing? We really want to destroy everything and to go into this stage, to become part of one artificial DNA and to convert ourselves to numbers. So this is one option. We give up and say, okay, that's it. We are letting everything to machines and they're taking over. They can go to other planets and expand through the space, which we are not able to. The other possibility is to completely harass this planet, to leave the robots behind, and to move ourselves, like in Wall-E movie, to some floating satellite that is waiting for the Earth to come back. And the third thing is to really take care about this planet and to go forward and do something. In order to do so, I don't play golf, but I like beef. And I like my Alfa Romeo, which is also polluting. So if it's not the point that I do it, we all have to do it. And that's why United Nations came with the approach through SDG to do something about our habitat and our place that we live on. And this is the end of my talk, but the beginning of the panel as an introduction to my dear colleagues, Mrs. Jelena Begović and Dragan Lončar, that we will talk about this, how we can stay on this planet at least for some more time. So please join me here.
I hope that you will see the screen behind me.
So as an introduction, we have foreseen that each of them will give their view on the Sustainable Development Goals proposed by United Nations from two different perspectives, as I might say. Jelena will give it from the perspective of science and the government, and Dragan will, since he's professor at the Faculty of Economics, he will talk more about the investment view on the whole thing. So let's start. Jelena, the floor is yours.
Thank you. If we can just open the presentation. Okay, now you see it. Thank you. So today I will talk from the perspective, SDGs from the perspective of science, and I will just give a short introduction of the history of the SDGs because I think it's very important, particularly for the population in Serbia and scientists in Serbia. So back in 2000, due to awareness of different challenges that the world is facing, on the Millennium meeting at UN, all the countries, 189 countries, 23 international organizations voted yes to bring down the 8 Millennium Development Goals. So from eradication of the poverty, focused on education, gender equality, empowerment of women, reduction of child mortality, improvement of maternal health, combat of different diseases, of course, environmental sustainability and global partnership were extremely important. So these Millennium Goals were focused on human capital, on infrastructure, and human rights. So 15 years in order to reach them. Some of them were very successful, some of them needed more activities. So in 2015, on the UN Sustainable Development Summit, a new framework was voted by all countries, and this is how we have 17 Sustainable Development Goals. What is important is to perceive that they are universal, so they're really important to every single country on this planet. They are transformable, and they are indivisible. So these are the 17 sustainable goals, and they should be reached according to the plan, until 2030. So therefore the people, therefore the planet and prosperity. Definitely eradication of the poverty is still one of the major challenges of our planet. All countries, all stakeholders are called to implement this plan in a collaborative way. And the idea is to shift the world toward a sustainable and resilient path, but that no one is left behind. These are the postulates, this is the philosophy behind the sustainable goals. And there are three dimensions, very important. It's economical growth, it's social inclusion, and it's environmental protection. And this is the question how we can balance economical growth with, for instance, sustainability and environmental protection. But what is also important for these SDGs is that they should meet the needs of present generation, but also they cannot compromise the ability of next generations to meet their own needs. So it's rather challenging. What is my message is that every organization, every company, NGO, foundation, scientific institute can really promote and work on at least few of these sustainable development goals. And from 2015, we are now in a very complex system, from 8 goals to 70 goals, from 60 indicators to 304 indicators, because the problems are extremely complex. So when we talk about sustainable development, the question is what needs to be sustainable, what we're talking about, and what needs to be developed. When we're talking about sustainability, we're talking about biodiversity, ecosystem, natural habitats, climate, evolutionary potential, and cultural heritage. But when we talk about what needs to be developed, we're talking about social equality, economic and home security, food and water security, education, and stabilizing the population. So we come to the question, what is the role of science in sustainable development? So let's go through some examples. One of the major challenges is definitely the provision of food for growing population. So we need, on the other hand, sustainable agriculture, because as you saw, we are destroying the nature through the agriculture. And we are now transforming from the industrial agriculture, where we have large pieces of land, a lot of fertilizers, a lot of chemicals, and a lot of destruction, to innovative agriculture, which is really sustainable in environmental way, economical way, and social way. But farmers cannot do it by themselves. And this is where the science jumps in. The scientists and farmers need to develop a new system. And sustainable agriculture is really directly connected to at least 7 SDGs. So what can be done by science? New integrated systems for the plant and animal production, protection of the environment, usage of non-renewable energy sources in a most efficient way, integration of natural cycles, biological cycles, and controls with the agriculture. Sorry. So we come to the question of sustainable energy. Definitely, the science needs to give the reply and the solutions again. Whether we talk about sustainable energy, that should be encouraged, whether we talk about renewable energy sources like wind, geothermal, hydropower, solar, and other maybe still unknown sources of energy. But we need to ensure that they are accessible, that they are affordable, and they are sustainable. And although it sounds easy, it's not really easy, and you will see the results where we stand with SDGs. So, the development of advanced clean fuel technologies, new batteries, hydrogen storage, new fuel cells, this is the task for the engineers and for the science. Nano energy, nuclear energy, solar energy, sustainable energy system. We need to act smart, we need really our minds to solve these challenges. Biotechnology really tackles almost every SDG. I put here just 9 or 10 of them that are important, but we are talking about the science for the better healthcare system, for the more sustainable and green food production and agriculture, for the waste management solutions, for the new innovative industrial processes in the production of chemicals, of food, and everything else. And this is where we have also a green chemistry, where science again jumps in the reduction or elimination of polluted hazardous substances in the whole processes of application, production, and management of the chemical products. Here, the science needs to give the replies, whether we are talking about new synthesis, solvents, catalysis, new products, new materials. Even if we talk about sustainable infrastructure, which is SDG per se, we're talking about green or smart buildings that are now transforming to green infrastructures. We're talking about environmental sustainability to triple sustainability: economical, social, and environmental sustainability. So we're talking about energy, water management, green areas, land management, but also new materials and new solutions. And this is the role of science. The science needs to give all the solutions and proposals and new approaches to these challenges. So we need to work together to implement it. We need appropriate environmental and other policies in order to support and implement all these solutions. And that means that all of us present here in this hall, but also on the governmental level, academic level, civil, private sector, citizens, we are all stakeholders in this process. So now, the global report for SDGs for 23, quite interesting figures and findings. I'm sorry, I don't see very well, but I want to emphasize some very important facts. So, okay, so we are talking about the energy, and where do we stand with the provision of access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all. What is the problem? The problem is that... Okay, so I'm seeing completely different on this, so I will switch. Okay, so let's go to the zero hunger, which is still in 30 years framework, zero hunger. So zero hunger after 25 years, it's at risk. This is the conclusion. So the food prices are rising constantly, and we are facing that 600 million people worldwide will face the hunger in 2030. And now you're seeing the energy, right? Yes. Okay, good. So energy. Well, we are really at the historical record of CO2 emission. So we are not reducing CO2. Whatever we are doing, we're not reducing. The global manufacturing growth is slowing from 7.5%, now it's dropped to 3.3%. What is happening with the climate change? Well, the sea level is still rising, and the temperatures are still rising with all the consequences that come from there. And now we come to the agriculture. So these are the facts. Yeah, but I'm sorry. So 10 million of hectares of forest are being destroyed every year, and almost 90% of deforestation comes from the agriculture. we are at risk of losing around 40,000 species, so we don't need a meteor. We're more than sufficient. And 100 million hectares of healthy and productive land was degraded every year from 2015 to 2019. So it's the size of the Greenland. And now, where do we stand with SDG goals? Actually, as you can see, well, for 50% of them, we're on track. 48% we're still lagging behind, and we are on a halfway of 15 years period. And 37% we already know we're not going to reach. So we are really lagging behind, and what we can do, this is going to be raised by my colleague, Professor Launcher, because the gap for reaching SDG is now growing from 2.5 trillion. Now it's estimated to be 4.2 million. So we are really going far away from the final destination. So what can be done but science, technology, innovation? On explanation and what we're doing in Serbia. For instance, we have smart specialization strategy. For those who don't know, it's a new way of development of strategies where you need evidence in order to put something as a priority area for the development for the financing. So for Serbia, we have 4 priority areas that are really helping Serbia to contribute to the reaching of SDGs. So food for the future, future machines and processes, manufacturing processes, ICT, and creative industries. And this methodology for creation of such a strategy was really good. So Serbia is one of the 5 countries that was chosen to be a global pilot program for the development of methodologies for achieving SDGs. So this strategy that is based on science, innovation, and industrial development, so combined together, can help reaching SDGs. But what can we also do? The world has recognized the science has really potential to help reaching SDGs. And Serbia initiated with 10 countries in United Nations this year. And this was the first initiative of Serbia after 20 years, from 2000. And the United Nations adopted and declared International Decade of Sciences for Sustainable Development. And at that meeting, at that gathering, 58 countries joined Serbia and other countries in order to use science for SDGs. Why is this important? Well, the world recognizes the crucial role of science that can play in the pursuit of sustainable development. UN invites all the stakeholders from governments, civil society, public, private, academia to really observe and raise the awareness of SDGs. And very important, no one should be left behind. And UN invites UNESCO to be the lead in implementation of this decade. So we have 10 years in front of us for the implementation. And the UN invites everyone to really actively support this implementation of the decades. And we will have 3, let's say, breaking points where we will analyze and report what was done until 2060, 29, and 2032. So thank you. This was my perspective from Science for SDGs.
Thank you, Jelena. As Jelena has mentioned, everything goes into the right direction from scientific point of view, but we need some money for that. So let's hear from other perspective how we can combine investments and make them sustainable in the long run. Dragan, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I I'm really privileged to be here with you today and to share my perspective on sustainable investments. The main hypothesis we try to test in this very interesting and challenging project supported by UNDP Representative Office Serbia and Government of Serbia was can private investments be sustainable and supported, because it sounds at first glance as oxymoron, because from private investment perspective, everything related to additional alignment with social goals or environmental goals is costly, and therefore cause lower level of profitability of private investments. So we tested this hypothesis and showed that, of course, in particular areas, investment opportunity areas, sustainable investments can be financially feasible and financially, let's say, bankable. Interesting for attracting private investment sources. Typical approach to investments by our business community and global business community is, let's see, estimated or forecasted cash flows, cash inflows, cash outflows, then calculating investment feasibility criteria, payback period, net present value, internal rate of return, and let's conclude if this investment is feasible from my investment standpoint or not. That's typical approach. This approach is different. We tried to narrow down so-called investment opportunity areas that satisfy at least three criteria. The first criterion is alignment with sustainable development goals, 17 sustainable development goals. The second one, is it aligned with national strategic priorities? In formal way, do we have we as a country recognized those investment opportunity areas as our national priorities? So we analyzed almost 200 strategic documents on local and national level. We talked to many relevant stakeholders from the government, from the ministries, from national agencies, private sector stakeholders, those who are investing their money actually or potentially. And the third criterion is, do we have proven business cases in those investment opportunity areas? Do we have business models that are living their life, creating value for private investors? So if investment opportunity area satisfies all those three criteria, alignment with SDGs, alignment with national priorities, and we have proven business cases in Serbia, we define them as investment opportunity areas. If any of those criteria is not met at the moment, we define them as investment white spaces or potential investments that can be interesting in near future, which was the case, for example, with geothermal energy or e-mobility. We have very well developed business ecosystem currently in Serbia, and we expect that until the end of next year we will have first electric car produced in Serbia by Stellantis in the city of Crnojević. So there is a queue of potential investment opportunity areas, sustainable investment opportunity areas that can be formally part of Serbia SDG investor map very, very soon. So, okay, benefits for the government is we want to attract sustainable investments in Serbia, both from domestic private investors and foreign private investors. As you know, probably Serbia is doing a lot recently, especially in the last 5-6 years, in the area of FDIs, foreign direct investments. Last year, Serbia attracted 4.5 billion euro, and we are leading the way in that sense in the region. In the first 7 months, we attracted 2.5 billion euro, and it is expected that we will attract almost 5 billion in this year, which is very challenging locally and globally, as you probably know. So the interest of government is attraction of sustainable investments, and for investors, SDG Investor Map is useful database of potential investment opportunities that for example, if I am private investor, I can go to Serbia SDG Investor Map and see what kind of opportunities I have in that field. And you will see later on that we prioritized 5 sectors and 13 investment opportunity areas for Serbia. Those sectors are food, energy, infrastructure, IT, and health and biotech. And within those 5 wider sectors, we isolated 13 investment opportunity areas. I don't know, this would be very interesting for you to explain methodology, but we followed very strict UN methodology on SDG investor mapping, starting from a number of 42 sectors and narrowing down to those five sectors and 13 IOAs, communicating with a large number of people, analyzing many business cases in Serbia, talking to private investors, and so on and so forth. So I will skip some slides. It's very important that investment opportunity area that we put in our map was in line with sustainable development goals. For example, if we talk about food, for example, organic food production in Serbia, it is aligned with zero hunger goal, good health, climate action, sustainable cities. So 4 or 5 SDGs are directly impacted by only one investment opportunity area. Each and every of those 13 IOAs were in very detailed manner described in Excel spreadsheet. We do not have opportunity to go now through very, very rich data assortment, but I will just mention that each and every IOA out of those 13 were described through 20 actionable data points. For example, if I'm private investor, I can see, and investment opportunity area is investing in solar energy power plants in Serbia. I can find which sector, subsectors, interesting locations in Serbia with insulation which is high enough and interesting for my investment. What is the business model? Do we have business case studies that are existing at the moment in Serbia? What is market potential for solar energy? Who I am selling electricity to? Through which kind of contract agreements? What is indicative return on investment? What is investment time horizon? For example, for solar power plants, 30 years at least. What is investment ticket size? For example, between 800,000 euro and 1 million per 1 megawatt, depending on location, vicinity of electricity transmission system, and so on. So I can find really all the necessary information that can make me more familiar as a private investor with that investment opportunity area. And I can then choose if it is interesting and feasible from my investment standpoint. This is the Excel that you cannot see. It's a very, very big Excel because every IOA is very in detailed manner described through those 20 actionable data points. So this is interesting for you. If you have time, go to SDG Investor platform. you can type in Serbia and you can find Serbia's SDG investor map. Serbia is only one out of 35 countries in the world that has its own SDG investor map. So the top priority sectors for Serbia are food and beverage, technology and communications, infrastructure, alternative energy sources or renewables, and healthcare and biotech. And within those 5 top priority areas, we have 13 investment opportunity areas. Fresh fruit and vegetable primary production, organic agricultural production, solar power plants, wind power plants or wind farms, high tech for agricultural production. Professor Crnojević is very, very well familiar with this field in investment opportunity area. Sophisticated software solutions, very interesting within infrastructure field, waste management services. It's a huge room for potential investments. Port infrastructure, so our rivers, especially River Danube, taking care of our rivers, investing in river marines, river ports, energy efficient residential housing, hospitality facilities, and within health and biotech, medicine production and delivery, digital healthcare solutions, and biotech medicine development. Those are 13 IOAs that we defined as potential sustainable investments from private investor perspective. The last column to the right, you can see potential investment ticket size or investment volume in the next 5 years across those 13 IOAs. So based on our calculation or approximation, these 13 IOAs can attract more than $8 billion of direct investments in the next 5 years. Indirectly, if we take into account so-called multiplying effect or investment multiplier for each and every IOA, we come to the conclusion that indirect investment circle is for each US dollar or euro directly attracted into those 13 IOA, we can attract additional $2.4 or euros within connected value chains. So altogether, potential investment opportunity or potential investment volume in the next 5 years can be up to 20 billion US dollars, which is 35%, almost between 30 and 35% of Serbia's GDP. Thank you very much for your attention.
So, Dragan, thank you for this fantastic insight from the other perspective. Now you make me more optimistic because there is cash. Money makes the world go round. Huh? There is some money behind. It means that SDGs are not so just a gloomy thing that we dream about, but that can be made. We have to let Jelena go because she has a meeting with Prime Minister. But just one question. This is the money perspective and scientific perspective. See, we all wear hats from the academia, but Jelena is also minister. What can government do for the investors in sustainable investments to make the environment to include science? So to promote that science is always and innovation is always engaged in this. Let me just give you one example. A big international investment company, I will not tell the name, came here with huge investment, but they treated Serbia like a colony. So no innovation, no science, nothing, let's just kill the environment and go out. After they hit the wall, they have hired many scientific institutions from Serbia to help them and to make the whole thing sustainable. So how we can make the whole environment, not just isolated case, but the whole environment that science and innovation are included in the investment in a sustainable way.
Actually, you know, when the investors come, when they see the lack of science, when they see the lack of innovative system, the lack of startups, they will invest in one way. But if they see a strong science, a strong connection between science and industry, so the science is really providing solutions, very concrete solutions, services, products through spin-offs, spin-outs, developed startup ecosystem, then they will invest in another way. That means from laser-intensive workers or industry, you will have highly sophisticated industry that involves R&D. Because in order to attract companies to open R&D, you need highly skilled people. You need universities that are following the trends, that are providing experts in the real need, for the real needs of the industry. And this is the role of the government. So you have to step into the education, and I'm talking about really from elementary, high school to higher education. You have to step in and support some of the areas of science that can really contribute and that are needed by the industry, by the real needs at the end of citizens of Serbia or of the world. So you have to invest in science, invest in innovation development, support very challenging development of startups, particularly in some areas, as I mentioned, like biotechnology. And then at the end, you have to provide the legal framework that is attractive for the industry to come here and invest in R&D or open their R&D centers, and you need the incentives. And the government of Republic of Serbia is really doing, I would say, excellent, great job on creation of ecosystem, but it's very complex and it requires a lot of activities from the government, including the investment or tax incentives, including the funding, including the ecosystem, and including providing really talents for this. And then there is an international component which is very important, so you have to bring talents from all around the world. So we have programs for that are being also developed.
Thank you for that. This is very ambitious and far-looking thing. The proof for that is the resolution in the United Nations that it's really spectacular thing, and congratulations for that work. I think that we have bright future if we combine investments with sustainability and by inclusion of science. You have to go
I will
now.
just leave you and...
Right. We will thank Helena now for the attendance. And two of us, maybe one or two questions, not to keep you away from your lunch. I saw your work earlier. It took you 2 years, I guess, to come up with this, something like that.
Between 1 and 2.
Between 1 and 2. So great effort, fantastic thing, very good approach to society development in a sustainable way. But what is now the destiny of this? Is it on the table of the government? When the investors come, they say, okay, this is the rule book, you have to take care of that, or it's just another study?
No, I hope it's not another study, because it should be now promotional document, or the document based on which potential investors can choose their investment destination in Serbia. It is put on UN SDG investor platform, so it's online, and government officials and also UNDP is doing a lot in promoting Serbia's SDG investor map. So it is live document, and what is also very important, it will be renovated, updated based on additional information, yes, and on additional trends in the future. So it's now first document that is done, and it's not academic document, it's very business oriented, it's very concrete. It contains many very practical, let's say, field information, understandable from private investor perspective.
Great. And since you are coming from academia and you said it's not academic document, how do you see the way to include a bit of spice of academia into the whole thing? Is there a way for that?
I don't know, it's maybe not necessary to do it, because the final goal of this document is very practical, to attract potential investments that are sustainable investments, and to make private investors understand triple bottom line approach, not only economic perspective, but social and environmental perspective. And in a simplified manner, maybe politics globally is dominating economy, and economy is impacting social trends and environmental trends in a way. So we are trying now to mix them in a single bowl and to look them at the same time from different perspectives. Let's say to take social cost benefit perspective, not only pure economic perspective.
Yes, that's clear. But what I wanted to ask, let's illustrate it, how to make Israel in the Balkans. Because in Israel, the investments are, we heard at the first panel, it's innovation, innovation, innovation. Can we somehow make the environment for innovative, sustainable investments in Serbia?
I think we are already doing a good job. You know, I'm not flattering to anyone. I'm just saying my opinion based on facts. For example, ICT segment is booming in Serbia. As you probably know, it's export, I think last year was 2.4, 2.5 billion, which is, and surplus trade in trade balance was 1.5, 1.6 billion for the economy of Serbia. There are many regulatory adaptations, many tax incentives, many things are done to attract investments in those fields. It takes time. It cannot be done quickly. It was not done in Israel in 1 or 2 years. It was a long-term strategy of 15, 20 years, and the results are coming. So I'm sure that we will witness good results in the future if we stay on the same track.
But it takes time, which brings us to my cosmic calendar. It takes some time to get from the Big Bang to where we are now. Any questions for two of us? No, then I would like to thank you for listening to all of this, and thank Dragan and Jelena for being my guests at this panel. Thank you. Okay.
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us here at the summit. And for this brief session to start, the organizers asked me to present a bit about a book that we have coming out in May of next year. It's a concept that maybe we can use to frame all of the changes going on, not just in biotech, but across every industry for the rest of our careers. A change that I've been looking at for a while in my work as a researcher and a teacher and an investor, and I've invested in about 30 technology companies, about half of which are driving this trend we call proximity. And I'll explain what that is in a moment, but first a big thanks to the organizers, the World Economic Forum and all of that. So I'm going to go very fast. Usually a presentation about proximity is not 12 minutes, but I'm going to give you a high level, and I'd like you to imagine how digital technologies of all sorts, not just AI or 3D printing or rooftop solar or synthetic biology or anything digital or digitally enabled, might change the underlying dynamics of industries, not just by connecting things and making things more accessible and analyzing data. These are all important. But there are fundamental differences between how digital works compared to industrial age technologies and capabilities. And they're rotting change right now that we will have only started to imagine. So where did this notion of proximity come from? It was some foresight I was trying to develop starting at about 2014. And before I present the notion of proximity, I want to frame why it's essential that we become better at generating and using understanding foresight, where the future might go. We cannot see the future in detail, but we can see the contours of the future. We cannot see the future in detail, but we can see the contours of the future if we're paying attention. And if we release ourselves from the existing paradigms to understand the new paradigms that are coming. And the reason that's so practically important for all of us as researchers, business leaders, policymakers, anyone really, is we have to make sure we're solving the right problem. And let me give you an example of what I mean. So before COVID, I was speaking for the leadership team of one of the big 3 bond rating agencies in the United States. And they were telling me about innovation programs that they'd put together, little teams around the company. They'd give them a challenge, a small budget, and a limited period of time to go out and tackle a really big challenge. And I love that model, by the way. I've seen it work very well at many organizations. One of the challenges bothered me, though. I said, what's this one about 2 months to 2 weeks? And they said, Professor, we have an offering for our clients that from the time they sign the contract to the time we deliver is about 2 months. And they said, we know digital is fast, so we've got to get a lot faster. So we asked this team to take that offering from 2 months to 2 weeks. And I said, well, that's bold, that's exciting, congratulations, but there's a problem. What if you go through all that work, spend a year and all those resources to take that response from 2 months to 2 weeks, and then someone else comes along and is able to do it in 2 minutes? They realized they would have wasted all of that effort. Fortunately for them, they changed that frame. They asked a different challenge, which is how can we respond to the same thing in less than 2 minutes? And it was good news because guess what people can do today? They can do just that. That's because they weren't working with the right foresight. What they realized was, you know what, the professor's right, because we're a bond rating agency. And you know what we do? We collect data and we analyze it. That's it. There's no scenario where sometime in the next 5 to 7 years someone won't be able to do exactly the same thing in a matter of minutes. And yet we still had the old frame. That's why foresight is essential. And that's why we've made the effort to understand where the world's going as a result of digital technologies in a way that will allow you to reframe the challenges, the foci, the things you attempt to create in the world. We've all experienced this, ChatGPT, OpenAI. This started to open people's minds to the fact that this notion of proximity, which I will share with you in a moment, is not just a little bit different than the past, but dramatically different than the past. And therefore, we have to redraw the way we think about our businesses and our policies, et cetera. So where this digital proximity thing came from was in 2014, I was, as I said, trying to generate some foresight about where the world would go. And I said, everyone's paying attention to all these digital technologies. But there must be some common underlying dynamics they drive in the economy, something we can discern that will give us foresight as to where the world will go. And the first thing we realized in the research won't surprise you at all. The first thing we realized in the research is that digital allows us to compress capabilities of all sorts in smaller and smaller packages and distribute them all around the economy ever closer to each moment in time and space. Now that's not so shocking. We probably all noticed that already. Your mobile phone, 3D printing machines, rooftop solar energy generation, vertical farming. These compress capabilities in smaller and smaller packages and distribute them all over the economy. But the implication of this is profound. As a result of this distributed nature of digital technologies push the production and provision of value, products, services, and experiences, ever closer to the moment of actual demand in time and space. Now, I'm not just talking about better supply chain management. I literally mean changing technology platforms, business models, your entire approach in order to rip apart the old system and procrastinate and wait until there's an actual customer ready to buy a specific product and then create one copy of that specific product, service, or experience in the moment that it is demanded. That is where every industry will go for the rest of our careers. You can start to think about your own industry. There are some that are already there, like video streaming. That's sort of obvious, right? Video streaming, I can watch any video I want anywhere. Duh, not a big deal anymore. It's assumed as fact. But every other industry is going to go that direction. And let me give you some examples. Let's shift to physical products. Today, We have a global supply chain optimized for scale manufacturing at a distance. The larger my plants, the lower my costs. Not always true, but for the most part. Over the rest of our lifetimes, this model will be ripped apart. Now, what I'm not saying is there won't be any big plants in China or Germany or Mexico. Of course, there will still be some massive production facilities where it makes economic sense. But we will also have mid-sized facilities closer to demand. Highly automated, robotics, artificial intelligence, et cetera, doing a lot of the work, closer to demand, more responsive to the local environment, more resilient to global geopolitical issues or weather or climate change. We'll also have production in urban areas near where people live, and eventually on your counter at home. To illustrate how profoundly different this will evolve, and again, it's not all going to happen in 2 years, but over the next 10, 20 years, this will evolve. To envision how different this will be, think about how hard it is to buy one matching metal fork. It turns out it's really hard to buy one matching metal fork. How do we do that? Well, someone in Western Australia mines iron ore and they put it on a ship and they send it to Southeast China, they melt it down, they alloy it, they send it to a plant, they make 12 forks, they put it into a box, into a pallet, slide it onto a ship across the Indian Ocean, to a port, to a train, to a store, and I buy 12 matching metal forks. Today, it is technologically trivial to download a design file, push a button, and print one matching metal fork to order. Now, this is happening at the peripheries. It's happening outside the core of companies and markets, but it's getting better and better, as technology does. We use it for more things. It gets better and better. It incurs into the core markets, and then it makes economic sense to do more and more of these things with additive manufacturing. To give you an example, Ford Motor Company last year reports they made 200,000 parts through 3D printing. Now, these parts were for replacement, but they were also for you. So let's say you own a 1966 Ford Mustang. First of all, congratulations, that's really neat. Second, you need a new manifold for that Ford Mustang. What you're not going to do is call a manufacturing facility in China and say, hey, I need a quote for 1 million manifolds, give me the lowest price possible. No, you're going to order one. Ford will print you one and send it to you, and guess how much you'll pay for that? A lot. It's a very high margin business, but very low volume. But that's okay with Ford, because Ford is doing it to provide service to their collectors, but also because they know the technology is going to get better and better over time, and they'll be able to apply it to more and more things. This is coming. And Serbia, in particular, has the opportunity as you build new capabilities, whether it's in biotech, and I'm so excited to see that percolating here, which is part of the reason I'm here, but in other industries as well. So in December of last year, I was in the UAE visiting Bustanica for research for the book, Proximity, that'll come out in May. And this is the largest vertical farm in the world. It's a partnership with Emirates Airlines. Now, the problem with vertical indoor farming is power, energy, sustainable energy, and cost. But you solve that problem, you solve distributed sustainable farming. And we can get any kind of produce anywhere. Now, I visited the farm, I tried the leafy greens and the herbs, and I got to tell you, they were as good as anything you get at a French farmer's market. No offense to the French, by the way. This was really good stuff, but here's the punchline. The next morning, I got on my flight from Dubai to New York, and the lettuce in my salad was picked at that facility the night before. Now, compare the economics, compare the math, compare the sustainability between the old model, which is we grow the leafy greens in North Africa or Spain, we harvest them, we put them on a ship, we send them to Dubai, and then who knows how many days later it goes into my salad. Compare that to we pick the salad 3 miles away, drop it on my plate, and I eat it the next morning. That's proximity, and that's coming very fast. Now, it's not just vertical farming. My good friend, Barbara Belvisi, a plant scientist in France, she came to me before COVID, knowing I invest in things, and she said, Rob, you know what, we want to be able to make food on Mars. Yes, because Elon Musk, he wants to go to Mars, so we need to be able to figure out how to grow food on Mars. Would you like to invest in my company? And I said, of course not. I'm not a billionaire. I don't have a 59-year horizon to make a return, but that's a really exciting project, Barbara. So she got money from NASA. She got money from the ESA. And they're still working on that. But meanwhile, she said, we need to create a real business. And so they thought about what are the highest value add plants that industry uses around the world, where there is an extracted ingredient from a plant product. And how do we optimize a pod? And this is one of her pods. This interstellar lab is right outside Paris. And in that pod, we are there in that pod, and that's, as my daughter pointed out, that's my finger in the photo. You know, Dad screwed that up. But in any case, those plants are being optimized for the yield of the constituent ingredient. Now, to give you an example of this plant is called Vetiver. Vetiver is grown in Indonesia and India. And the way they harvest the ingredient, it's in the roots. They pull the plant up, they chop the roots off, and they have to start over again. But in Barbara's model, this is hydroponic. They lift the structure up, they cut some of the roots off, and the plants continue to grow. And the exciting part is the yield of the chemical from those plants in that pod is 17 times higher than in the wild. Now here's the more exciting thing. As an investor, it's very exciting. These pods, their biggest customer, they have actual revenues now. This is not a fool's errand. Their biggest customer is L'Oreal. Why? Because L'Oreal needs very, very expensive, low volume, very high margin ingredients for fragrances and cosmetics. And I would imagine there are pharmaceutical applications for this as well. So L'Oreal is buying 11 of these pods right now and putting them in their factories all over the world. Why? Because when they have these pods in their factories, they are no longer constrained by geopolitical issues, by climate issues, by challenges with brittle supply chains. They have released themselves from that, and they can decide, I need this product in this location at this moment. That's proximity. It's coming fast. One thing we have to recognize is that true breakthroughs happen by doing what we could never have done before. Most of us look at a technology and say, what can this help us do a little bit better what we already do? That's a good exercise, but it's not enough. There's a long story behind this, but I'll just point out something called the no-code movement. If you haven't heard about this no-code movement, it means the ability to create software that's enterprise grade you can use to run your business without having to know how to code at all. This means it brings to any smart individual, any business person, the ability to sit down, make software within a few days or a few weeks, and no one has to know how to code. This company, Uncork, which I also invested in a couple years ago, has just passed $100 million in revenues, and their clients are insurance companies and banks. It's coming fast. I'm going to transition because we have a presentation in the other room we have to prepare for. But just to put a fine point on this, at the beginning of exploring this notion of proximity, we wanted to find examples of situations where this could never happen. We're thinking we're just not going to be able to have proximate production of something. And we hypothesized that maybe pharmaceutical drugs would be one of those things because they're life and death. You have to get it right. If you screw it up, someone goes to jail. Well, it turns out that's not true. This fellow, retired Army Colonel Dr. Jeffrey Ling, and a team from MIT and DARPA with funding from DARPA has created something, you can look it up, called on-demand pharmaceuticals. It's the size of a refrigerator, and you can produce almost any kind of synthetic drug on demand anywhere. You type in 300 tablets of ciprofloxacin. You type in 1,000 tablets of atropine. A few hours later, out comes 1,000 tablets of atropine, exactly as you would buy at the pharmacy. No difference. Now, just to put a fine point on this as I conclude, imagine the difference between the way we do it today, where we make millions of copies of thousands of different drugs, put them in warehouses, ship them all over the world, and hope they're in the right place at the right time, which usually they're not, often they're not. In the United States, we have drug shortages all the time in hospitals and clinics. With this piece of equipment, the equipment has 3 ingredients: carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. What's the shelf life of carbon? Forever. So this is proximity. It's coming for every industry. I'd love for you to think about what it might mean for you and your context. And don't seek to just improve, seek to transform, because someone is going to do it if you don't. Thank you.
do vlade. Znači, vlada će prvi, pa onda ti do njega. Ja mislim da je to najbolje. Tako je. Super. Može, može.
Novitet, nisam znala na engleskom.
Stvarno?
Ne.
Pa rečeno je još kad smo se dogovarali, jel nije problem nekome?
Nema veze, ja jedino nisam znala.
Kako vam nisu rekli?
Ne, ja sam znala da stoji jedan, došli vratno u poslednji moment i nisam govorila.
Ona ti nije prenala.
Ali, borit ćemo se.
Okay, can we start? Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our panel dedicated to balance of 4 important things that we have in our everyday life, which is food for the people, environment that we live in, energy that we need, and science and innovation that should support all of this. And with special focus on biotech in science. I have privilege and honor to have on the panel 4 charming ladies, Minister of Energy and Mining, correct me if I'm Dubravka Đedović, State Secretary in the Ministry of Environment, Sandra Dokić, State Secretary in Ministry of Agriculture, Forestry and Water, yes, good, Ivana Popović, and Minister of Science, Technological Development and Innovation, Jelena Begović. So we will start with this first slide, which is the statement by Noah Yuval Harari. The essence of agricultural revolution is the ability to keep more people alive under worse conditions. And this happens since 7,000 years before Christ, when we started to domesticate food and we made excess of value and then made possibility to feed the priest, doctor, and other people and to develop the society. And since then we are growing, and especially in the 20th century, we have the exponential growth of population in every aspect, on every continent, and this is especially important with respect to the influence on the environment, primarily by feeding the people, producing the products to it. So this is the rise of the consumption of meat over the last 50 years, which shows steady development. Unfortunately, this exponentially influences our climate by emission of CO2, methane, and other gases of greenhouse effect. And this is just a small illustration how on different segments of environment the agriculture influences makes bad influence. These red bars are showing the percentage of different segments. And then to mention again one thing that is especially illustrative, this is the consumption of beef, where the huge amount of methane emission in the atmosphere, only China as a country has bigger emission than cows globally, is basically ruining the atmosphere, and the only idea is that people want to eat beef. And in the long run, it's not sustainable. We have to take care of that. To try to replace the food that we have now, meat, with plants, and in that way we can reduce the croplands by order of magnitude, also greenhouse emissions by 96%, and nitrogen fertilizers by 95%. So let's start with the story of agriculture. We have now very intensive agriculture to provide the food for society, where in every segment there are influences on the environment, like fertilizers, manure management, or producing cattle, pesticides, antibiotics, compaction of soil with heavy machines, and irrigation that is basically washing out the soil and produces very, very bad influence. And if we look at that from the point of view of value chains, everything that is associated to agriculture, from the factory of seed and fertilizers through the primary production, transport, processing industry, packing, delivery, and in the end waste management, in every segment we have a problem with this chain. So in Europe, only 90% agricultural production of food and fiber and fuel accounts for 90% of ammonia emission, 50 to 80 of nitrogen load in freshwater bodies, and 10% of greenhouse gas emissions, including the 80% of methane that we have already mentioned. So we come to this picture where on the left-hand side we have the condition that we live in now, and we have the climate problem, we have the environment problem, we have the energy problem. We are burning coal and gas to produce energy, and we dream of some future where everything will be green, we will have renewable resources of energy, organic agriculture, and so on. So we are here now, and we want to go here. We are talking today about the problems that we are facing in these 4 segments and how we can tackle them, and we are starting basically from agriculture story. So my first question, sorry, just this is running out of control a little bit. Okay. The first thing that I would like to tackle is the fact that we have the agriculture. We'll come back to energy. We will have the agriculture as a problem that is putting pressure on everything. We need energy for agriculture. We need chemistry. We need the various inputs, and the demand is growing. Ivana, what should we do? We are starting from you. You are the biggest problem here, agriculture. Please.
It is quite difficult to speak after this very bad influence.
Okay.
And all these problems that you mentioned, that is agriculture actually producing. But let me tell that we as a ministry, as a country, are working very hard on developing our systems of agriculture that are coping and getting to this green picture. Thank you so much that you finished with this one, the future of the agriculture, that we are all looking forward to it. We are definitely doing everything we can as a society when it comes to change in the system of production in agriculture. First of all, I would like to say that education, when it comes to agriculture, is very important. I'm traveling a lot through our country and meeting a lot of farmers, and I have to say that they need new infos. They are very open to new ideas, to new ways of growing any type of vegetable or fruit. But they need to get information how to do it, and also they need those new scientific improvements to be presented the way that they can understand. And we have in our ministry type of chain that we are actually communicating with our farmers through various educational meetings, and I have to say that this is giving very good inputs over the past several years. But something that I would like to tell you that you mentioned agriculture is a problem, but we have to say that agriculture is actually getting food to all the people in the world, and we have to find new ways. We have to collaborate with science to get these new possibilities. Also, climate change is something that is rapidly changing the way we have to work in our farms. So all of that mixed, I think we have a lot of job in the future. We have to educate our people how to get to this green picture, and please remove this carbon dioxide and everything. Please move back to the green future of the agriculture. And our ministry is really observing all the innovations in technology, in science, and we are trying to get that to be reachable for our farmers. So through our subsidies and all the other forms that we can manage. And I think I have to mention, we spoke about it, I visited the BioSense Institute 6-7 years ago, and I have to say at that moment it was really unbelievable to think about our farmers as somebody who is having a tablet in his hands and observing all his farms through GPS, all the satellite views and everything. And it was something like futuristic movies, but nothing that is going to happen in a future 10, 5, 15 years. But I have to tell you that even today, a couple of years after, we do have that in our villages. We do have new technologies. We have machinery that is completely innovated, and our farmers are very willing to change everything in this future green, ecologically sustainable agriculture. So I hope next time I'm not going to be a very bad influence and the biggest problem.
Thank you for this. Don't get me wrong, I live from the same agriculture. But just to support your story, 10 years ago when we started with BioSense story, and we could not explain to people what we are doing. And then we came up with the term digital agriculture. And it was like, what are you talking about? How mean digital and agriculture? And they were laughing. 5 years after that, it was trying to adopt. Now it's normal. Now, nobody is saying anything against that. Then, since we are talking about agriculture, to find food, we have to find the energy to produce the food. And we are getting to this green, renewable, and everything that we can do to go into the greener world. And we are promoting various solutions. One of them is interesting for me. It's electric cars. So now I just came back from China. 1/3 of the cars are Tesla, and another third are Chinese electric cars that are better than Tesla, but and cheaper. But for me, it's puzzling. You have to find the energy for that car as well. So if some of my friends were traveling, 2 of them, one with regular car and one with Tesla, from here to Istria, and they had to recharge in Zagreb, and they had to wait 45 minutes or 1 hour to recharge, and the price of the electricity was higher than the price of gas in the other car. So how do we get there? Where do we get if we switch everything to electric? All the cars, my beautiful Alfa Romeo and everything, we go to electric. How can we from renewable sources, find all that energy which comes to this, that we have stable demand per person, whatever we do, it's there. What is your view on that?
Well, it's, I would say 100 questions in one.
Yes.
But okay, let's start. Oh, okay. I say it's one question in single question, but let's start one by one. First and foremost, we need to get enough energy source and ensure the energy supply in terms of the security of supply. That's one first big issue we need to address, and we as a Serbia and as the government of Serbia. So to have stable energy supply, it needs to be green, and it needs to be available in enough quantities, and at the same time, we need also to consume less, so to be more energy efficient. So several topics to address. First and foremost, what we are currently doing is making environment needed to enable the more renewable energy production. So from green sources, because Serbia is depending at least 2/3 on its energy supply from coal. So that's the first challenge we need to address, and it's a long-term challenge. We are currently preparing the energy strategy to 2040 with projections to 2050. What happens with base energy? What is alternative source, because renewable energy is not the base energy. Even if once we reach all the targets of renewable energy that we set to ourselves in 2030 and 2040, what happens after 2040 in terms of the base energy? Is the nuclear actually the baseline that we need probably to decide soon, if it is, and to go into the development of more environmentally acceptable nuclear energy? That's the first long-term debate. The second is, besides needing the energy for green vehicles or electric vehicles or transportation, you also need to have ingredients, meaning the natural resource, to be able to fabricate the electric vehicles. And that's yet another topic that currently it's very geopolitical as well, similar to energy discussion, or the energy security of supply discussion, where we are facing the situation that China is the largest EV market, simply because of the availability of the natural resources, and there I speak about critical raw materials. How and what Serbia can do in that global force, and how it can position itself to actually be able to contribute to the electric vehicle production, and what is needed in terms of the resources to drive that. Can we utilize our critical raw materials effectively and efficiently to be able to be one of the leading producers of the new technologies when it comes to automotive industry? And that's the second issue we are also currently trying to address. What are the preconditions we need to have met, again, to be able to prospect, to develop new technology, to safeguard the environment? So it's again, we are going back to also environmental, social standards that need to be addressed in that context. The third very important topic is, what do we do to be more energy efficient, to need to produce less? As Serbia, and we saw the graph, you see the energy consumption is increasing, not decreasing. US is obviously the state which is the highest, has highest intensity of energy consumption. Serbia has its path to go. We are probably utilizing 3 to 4 times more energy to produce one GDP unit than the rest of the EU, which means that there is a huge gap to fill. To fill that gap, you simply need money. It's very easy discussion. The more you invest in energy efficiency measures, the more efficient you will be, and it will give you benefit at the end of the day of lower energy consumption. In that context, at least for this forthcoming period, we have secured what is the historical maximum of the funding for energy efficiency measures. We are talking about some 450 million euros that we are investing as subsidies from the state to local sub-governments, but also to households, to enable and stimulate the energy efficiency measures, because people look at it as a cost, but in the medium term it's actually the benefit, because you consume less, you pay less ultimately, and in the area where electricity and gas prices are not anymore the social category, we will need to be more wise and be more prudent when it comes to spending, both in capacity and in money. To enable also the development of renewable energy, We need to stimulate the private sector to invest. Simply, no country in the world can invest as much as needed in order to rely only on its own state-owned power resources. It's, of course, liberalized market. So what can we do as a country to stimulate the development of renewable energy? We have done our path. We have successfully concluded the largest auctions for renewable energy conducted in this part of the region and of Southeast Europe in one go, and have actually got excellent bidding price for electricity, which the lowest was some 64 euros per megawatt, which in current market conditions is very good, and even with long-term projections of electricity prices, we can say that it will not only bring us additional capacity of green energy, but we will actually make some profit out of it for the state budget and the budget of our energy companies. Having said that, we need to strengthen very much our distribution network, and this comes to the point at what speed you can charge your car at the gas station, how good your connections are, how secure your grid is, how actually digitalized your grid is so that you can manage it efficiently. And there as well, for the first time, we are dedicating at least some meaningful resources to our energy distribution companies. We are talking about some 400 million secured funding to help them invest and digitalize and strengthen the network so that we can effectively introduce on the new highways that we are building and opening, that we can have actually the gas stations which have the electric chargers, because without it, obviously, we can only dream about the electric vehicle penetration. I must say that we are lagging behind on electric vehicle per person when it comes to actually the distribution of electric vehicles in our country. It's a question of money. The electric vehicles have been traditionally expensive, in Europe in particular. The governments in the EU have been giving subsidies since the last 15 years for electric vehicles. We have started, and we should continue to do that. And hopefully, the price of electric cars will also, with the technology development, will go down, and with some new markets, of course, being opened up, where the EU is not a single domination market that traditionally has been too expensive. So unfortunately, energy is a long-term vision. There are no quick wins, no shortcuts, and it costs money and it takes time. And that's the difficulty of that sector in particular. Nonetheless, we have at least identified what we need to do, so we know our homework. The government adopted in June the infrastructure energy development plan with energy efficiency measures, which prescribes 15 billion euros of needed investments over the next 10 years in our energy sector in order to give ourselves a possibility to get where we need to get when it comes to increase in share of renewable energy, increase in energy efficiency, which will help us bring down greenhouse gas emissions by 40.4% compared to 1990, which is also in our national strategy on greenhouse gas emissions. So overall, and I must say, we are working very well with the also Ministry of Environment. There is no energy that doesn't have impact on environment. There is no mining that doesn't have impact on environment. Either we go to a cave age where we eat only plants and we have no economic growth, and we don't develop technology, we don't develop research, we don't develop science, we only sit and meditate, right? Or we're gonna find measures how we can effectively develop new technologies, new energy sources, how can we actually advance our society, which means probably that we will have a new industrial revolution, and at the same time protect the environment. I think this is the challenge of our century, this is the challenge for us, but also for our children, and we need to do this today because of our children.
Thank you. You answered all 100 questions. So the last thing that you mentioned, we have to find the solid reliable source of base energy. And let's look at this graph, the forecast until 2050. It's exponentially growing, but the one dark thing is nuclear. It stays at the same level. So this is what was happening in the 60s. There was big enthusiasm for nuclear, and then it stopped. Is it the answer? Then we are getting towards the environmental things. This is the recent documentary movie by Oliver Stone, Nuclear Now. And let's see if we can put it now, please.
We have come to a point in time when Earth is asking us, do you know what you're doing? Most of our power still comes from burning gas and coal, and the amount is going up, not down. If we do not cut carbon emissions by nearly 100%, the world will suffer serious damage. This is an even bigger problem than we thought.
The answer to solving climate change is very straightforward.
And what's the best solution in your mind?
Largely nuclear.
We've been trained from the very beginning to fear nuclear power. The very thing that we fear is what may save us.
What's scary is not the same as what's dangerous. Coal is dangerous. More people die from coal in a couple of weeks than have ever died from nuclear, which is all from the accident in Chernobyl.
First question is, what about the waste? Nuclear waste is nothing compared to climate change.
Once you understand it, people have a better sense of not being afraid.
We have to provide clean, affordable energy to the world. In general, we need to move faster. We do this for our families, we do this for our kids and those generations.
We've run out of time to be afraid.
Interesting. It shows that there are many, many things behind that got us into this situation, and it will be interesting that you mentioned, if we are going for nuclear, how to explain to people of Serbia who are afraid of 5G and vaccine and lithium, how we should go to nuclear energy. But after watching this movie, I'm quite positive that this is the way to go. Speaking of that, we are getting to the environment, to global warming, where in the movie they say that nuclear is the big chunk of the solution of global warming, because really the waste is minimal compared to the atmosphere and ozone layer and everything. We have the global warming as now the fact. Nobody is now saying that it doesn't happen. This causes directly the disasters, and this is the statistics of the disasters since the 1970 till today. I had it yesterday. I gave a talk to headquarters of Generali insurance company. They are in good business with disasters. They are like blossoming. Yes, they are making money on that. And if we look especially to direct consequences of global warming are floods and extreme weather. We had a cellular storm this summer. Finally, we had a chance to witness how it looks living in Florida or some other interesting places. It might be the case that there will be more and more on that. And as an intro to this, there is a Carl Sagan documentary. It lasts for 20 minutes. It's not documentary. It's a hearing in front of Congress in 1984. So it's 40 years ago. And it lasts 20 minutes. I cut it down to 2 minutes. I'm good at, just a second, I'm good at editing video, but it was very difficult for me because every sentence was crucial. So this is the best I could to put it like the short intro to environment, to see that things that we are talking about, he was talking about the same things in 1984. Please.
If you ask what determines the Earth's climate, clearly the main thing that determines it is sunlight. Sunlight is what heats the Earth. The sunlight comes in as before, but when the surface tries to radiate to space in the infrared, it is blocked, it is impeded by the absorbing gases. And so the surface temperature has to rise so that there is an equilibrium between what comes in and what goes out. So this is the greenhouse effect. As you've heard, the best estimates, they certainly have some uncertainty attached to them, are that at the present rate of burning of fossil fuels, the present rate of increase of minor infrared absorbing gases in the Earth's atmosphere, that there will be a several centigrade degree temperature increase on the Earth, global average, by the middle to the end. Because the effects occupy more than a human generation, there is a tendency to say that they are not our problem. Of course, then they are nobody's problem. Not on my tour of duty, not on my term of office. It's something for the next century. Let the next century worry about it. But the problem is that there are effects, and the greenhouse effect is one of them, which have long time constants. If you don't worry about it now, it's too late later on. And so in this issue, as in so many other issues, we are passing on extremely grave problems for our children when the time to solve the problems, if they can be solved at all, is now. The solution to these problems requires a perspective that embraces the planet and the future, because we are all in this greenhouse together. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So, 1984, someone who was very young now is in the middle age, and it's still the same problem. And that's what he said, that we will have this problem in the middle of next century, and the global warming by several degrees. Everything happened. So what can we do, and on a global level, but also in Serbia, what do we do to really try to push in this direction and protect the environment? Because the living planet index is going down, and we are having constant problems about this, and still the things after 40 years hasn't changed much. Sandra, please.
Thank you very much. I think that in this situation, maybe it's easy for me to talk about environment and how to protect, but let's be realistic. Because now we are facing with the climate change, and that is something we started, let's say somebody identified 40 years ago. We know what we need to do. The whole world knows what they need to do, but it's really difficult to achieve all our targets. At this moment, we as a Serbia, we really adopted this low carbon development strategy, and we are motivated, and we know how to reach this target, and that is to decrease this greenhouse gas emission in the next 7 years by 33.3%. But that is significant for Serbia, but not on a global level. You know, the biggest polluters is the USA, the China, and the rest of the countries. And if we want to have some result on the global level, we really need to see what they're doing about it. Because when we're talking about climate change, we really need to be aware that we have two aspects of climate change. We now have this mitigation and how to decrease GHG emissions, but what is the most important for us, for our citizens, for science, for everybody, is how to adapt on this climate change. They're still here, and we know that even if we have some bottom and we switch off the bottom, we will still have the effect of the climate change. And that is something what will happen in the next 10, 15 years. So now we have to be prepared to adapt and to see how we will live with this climate change. And that's why our ministry, I think on the next government, we will adopt the climate change adaptation program. That is something that is a strategic document, and there we identify what will be the consequences, and how actually to react, and how to adapt, and how to be prepared for everything what is coming. So at this moment, we know that energy industry, also agriculture, they emitting the GHG emissions. But I really don't think that we should all stop eat beef if we want to be in favor with the environment. No, that is not the solution. Because when we talk about environment, we need to be aware that we really need to invest a lot. For example, in Serbia, we heard that only for the national energy plans, we need 50 billion euros, and also the 50 billion and more than 50 billion euros we need for green infrastructure. If we want to do something, we need to invest in regional center for the solid waste management, also in wastewater treatment plants, and also in air quality to replace the boilers, not only in public institutions, but we have so many people who are using coal in their households. So that is the main issue. There is no magic button that we can say, okay, now we are on green. We really need to invest, and it takes time. And that is not only the case for Serbia. That also happened for the rest of EU countries. They also needed 20, 25 years to be on this level of let's say, first awareness, and then on development, and to have this kind of environmental protection. So it's not easy to talk about it. When we said agriculture, we usually means on a methane, but we cannot replace the cow to, okay, let's find some other cow, then we will not have the methane. But what is, yes, that is not going to happen. So that's why I really do want to support Ministry of Agriculture, because even I think it's really important that our ministry to fight against climate change. We need to know what we can achieve and what is realistic, and to not jeopardize our energy, and to not jeopardize our food and our agriculture. That's why I think it's more important to focus on waste, because we have so many unsanitary landfills. Nobody is talking about the methane these unsanitary landfills are actually emitting. And what is unsanitary landfill? We need to focus, to separate the waste, to start recycling, and also to see all perspective of circular economy. And circular economy is something what is actually the really good tool for the private sector, for the business sector, because in that aspect we can really see the good collaboration between the innovation, science, and business in favor of environment. We recognize that it's really important step if we want to improve our environment. And last year we adopted the circular economy program. And one of the measures is actually to strengthen collaboration between the research, development, and the business sector. And I really think, and I'm proud because we have really good cooperation with the UNDP and the few projects we are implementing together. And in this showroom, the green showroom, we will see some projects we have supported with the UNDP. It's a really great innovation, and with some of them, I'm quite sure that we can save the planet, because we are talking about the plastic, the biodegradable plastic, which is completely eco-friendly, and we can that materials can completely replace the single-use plastic. That is something we are fighting all the time, not only Serbia, but also on a global level. So it's important to have this kind of collaboration, to be prepared and to know how much we need to invest. But what is important to know that at this moment, we have so many investments in Serbia. Maybe some of the people are not aware of that, but 5 billion euros we have at this moment we allocated, and we have implementation of a lot of projects. sewage system, wastewater treatment plant, regional centers, etc. When we build this green infrastructure, and that's why we need the collaboration between science, innovation, because the technology is really moving forward. And something what actually we designed 10 years ago or 5 years ago, it's old-fashioned at this moment. So we need somehow to adjust and to say, okay, we have some new innovation, let's go in that way. So it takes time. We really need to be patient. We really need to put a lot of effort to decrease emissions, but what is most important, really to adapt on the climate change which already happened. So that is for now.
Thank you. You have stolen my question for the second round. I was thinking of cooperation with the science, but you already tackled that. So let's continue along that line. I wanted just to mention this because before we go to science and innovation, this is the result of scientific and non-scientific approach. We have the annual change in forest area. Brazil, of course, is in deep problem, deep minus, and it's a well-known thing. But look at China. China is getting through reforestation due to the scientific approach. And this is well explained in the book, The Collapse, by Jared Diamond, where he has shown that a number of societies that he was talking about have collapsed completely because of deforestation in the end. It was the environment always. For example, these guys on the Christmas Island, for these head statues, they were cutting forests to make the vehicles to pull this. In the end, they stayed out of the forest and they died almost completely. So in that, speaking of that, we need science to help us with the approach how to get in a holistic way and tackle all these issues, agriculture, energy, and environment. And David Attenborough, also Cutler.
Charles Darwin, whose astonishing understanding of the natural world led to what has been called the greatest idea in human history, the theory of evolution by natural selection. Darwin revealed that all species have evolved over time to best exploit the conditions in which they live. As far as we know, there have been 5 major extinction events on our planet. Events caused by changes so severe that many species simply can't adapt and, as such, die out. Right now, we are in the midst of the Earth's 6th mass extinction. One every bit as profound and far-reaching as that which wiped out the dinosaurs. 96% of the mass of mammals on our planet today are us and the livestock that we've domesticated. Only 4% is everything else, from elephants to badgers, tigers to bats. 70% of all birds are now domesticated poultry, mostly chickens. One of the things Darwin's work has taught us is that we break nature's connections at our peril. Yet, break them we do at ever greater speed. The impacts of our growing population and our consumption now directly threaten our own future. Nature once determined how we survive. Now we determine how nature survives.
So, very inspiring movie for the continuation of our talk and questions for Jelena. David Attenborough, in his movie Our Planet, gave 5 recipes how to save the planet. And the problem with that is our way of life. We are running for GDP after every year releasing the statistics, what was the growth, and can science do something about it to control this growth and make it compatible with our life? This is the scene from one of the latest movies where Woody Harrelson is debating with a drunk guest, and he says at some point, he's a communist, and he says that growth for the sake of growth is the ideology of a cancer cell. So, having said that, Jelena, the floor is yours. How science can tackle these issues, especially from the biotech domain, since this is the biotech conference?
I'm really happy that we sit here as representatives of the government and discussing really, really important things that definitely influence every single each of us on a daily basis. The question is, should we change, should we adapt, or should we combine adaptation and change? So it's a question, shall we keep our lifestyle and grow further and ask for more? Shall we change our lifestyle, or are we willing to give up at least on something? I think that the latter is less possible at this moment. I love this wording, growth for the sake of the growth, but nevertheless, when you speak to people from economy, from finances, they will explain to you that this is the only way for the economy and for us to exist in the world organized like this. So we cannot challenge that. We will have to grow. But the solutions, definitely we're facing global challenges, and this morning I showed you that the idea of reaching SDGs until 2030, it's really jeopardized, so we cannot reach it due to many, many things, but one of those things is postponing the solution, or a fear of maybe a little bit more radical solutions. But when it comes to the science and knowledge, definitely it can speed up the process and it can offer some of the solutions. I will give the examples on the meat and milk. At the moment, there are now startup companies, I can say all over the world, that are using biotech to produce milk in yeast. So pure milk, cow's milk, completely cow-free, and they're producing it in yeast. On the other hand, we have meat production from single cell, and it's still meat, so I'm not talking about the vegetable-based meat, it's really meat. And for the next generations, you know, if they grow up with burgers like that from the beginning, they won't have any problems. We are having now problems. So there are solutions, and they will advance, but I see the science that is actually co-evolving with the challenges. But I'm also very happy that today we're discussing among different stakeholders, from the government, from the financial world, from the civil sector, and also from the science, about the really important role that science has. And I will go back to David Attenborough because, every single biologist read his books, A Life on Our Planet at least. So as a scientist, how can we restore the stability? Through keeping and preserving of biodiversity. Biodiversity of a single species or biodiversity of all species, it's the only way that we can survive at this moment. And the sooner we start working on it, it will be easier for all of us, but we cannot stall anymore. I mean, we cannot be in 40 years, our children sitting on some 3D hologram panels and discussing again, okay, what shall we do? Definitely the energy, sustainable energy is a solution, but we have the increase in demand of energy. At certain point, we will have to stop, at least until fusion is as a source of energy available for us. Then there are also very concrete things. The scientists think that if we keep 1/3 of all the oceans as a non-fishing free zone, we can produce enough fish for the whole humankind. But we have to give up on 1/3 just for the restoration. And we can apply this also on the land. So are we ready to change our diet? Well, for past several decades, people are changing really diet from different reasons. It doesn't have to be to save the planet. But you see in your surrounding, people are going towards more carb-free or animal food-free or this. But it's not actually a problem. I mean, if you are motivated and you have some explanation for yourself, we can easily change our diet habits. In combination with the new biotech-based solutions, this can make a huge, huge impact. How can we increase the yield of plant production? Also, there is a biotech solution. So much cleaner solutions as fertilizers, as bacteria that can help increase the yield. So there is a science behind it. And today we have Ginkgo Bioworks, one of the biggest biotech companies, that is doing this. So it's working, definitely. And that's also one solution. And what is the biggest, I think, challenge is to establish, again, balance with nature. And I'm not sure that we are ready, you know, to think of ourselves as really a part of the nature, although it sounds very nice when you say it. But when you look at our actions, well, we are a bit above the nature, but we have the knowledge, we have the science, and I think this balance can be brought to some different level, something completely different, but it can be restored. And me personally, as a scientist still, I would love if we could start acting now and not wait for bigger events that will force us to find the solutions. I would use the technology that we are having, and it's developing at immense rate. We have a lot of smart people, not only in Serbia, on a global level. We should start working together because global challenges you cannot solve, definitely. I mean, we can make a green heaven here, perfect solution, but we're not alone on this planet. So this requires really global interventions. So definitely science and biotech can give at least partially contribution to the energy, to the environment protection, and also to the agriculture apart from the medicine.
Thank you so much. This sounds like because Jelena has a solution for all three of you. Since they are waving to me the multiple times that we are running out of time, I would like to get the final statement from each of you, and with, of course, the signature with science, to see how the science can contribute. And would you see the Ministry of Science and Ministry of Environment or Energy working together on supporting new innovation in this domain, but within one sentence? Huh?
Conclusion is that science can give us healthy McDonald's. If that's the conclusion, I'm happy with it. And we'll make sure to have enough green energy to power that McDonald's station. No, seriously, without science, we can't go to the next level. It's as simple as that. And this has taught us that we couldn't exit or start exiting coal and gas without science. Science gave us wind turbines, science gave us solar panels. Science will give us much more sustainable nuclear energy. And this is actually the future. I do agree with the trailer, and we need science for that. I think we are at the initial stage, because without base energy we cannot develop. And there is no quick solutions. There is only, if we want to leave fossil fuels behind, there is no other solution. Thank you.
Thank you.
One sentence: without science, we cannot improve environment. That's the end.
Well, I would like to say that I think Serbia has advantage because we have a good soil and we have very good scientists, and definitely we can collaborate and make actually the perfect state for the future of agriculture. But we are a small country. Globally, we need to develop solutions for these huge problems. We said ecology, energy, science, agriculture, we have to collaborate and work all together. But at the end, we have to give food to our people. That is the most important, and I think we're going to find the best possible solution for it. So, thank you.
So science for super sustainable future, that's it.
Okay. I would like to thank my panelists. I think this was the most beautiful panel at this event. And thank you for listening to us.